Welcome to another episode at Ball Over Passion. I'm joined by Z. How are you, mate?
What's up, guys? Yeah, I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm a little bit rough under the weather, but we move, we move. Willow, mate, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Better than sounding like you, mate. Sound like you've had a long night.
Yeah, no, it was a struggle. I mean, it was a long night for more than just us or me. I think the lads had a tough one. We're gonna hear to break down the Brighton preview as well as the result really on the weekend, which I don't know, we had some disagreements here even just on the pod preview, so it'll be a good little debate in terms of where we saw some of the problems here. And I think going off the preview, I mean, I was fairly confident on paper in terms of what we could see, and when I saw the lineups, maybe we could probably start there. What were your guys' opinions on the lineup in terms of Lokonga starting? Did you guys have an issue with that? I'll go to Willow first.
No, I was really confident with the lineup because we all predicted 2-0. I saw our lineup and Brighton's lineup. I thought, damn, I should have gone 3-0. I should have gone, something like that. I should have gone more with it because Brighton's lineup was poor. And ours, I like the balls of it because, Arteta, he's always been critiqued in the past by going with the safe option, by, going with experience over youth, and he's a youth killer and all of this rubbish. So to actually go and see him put a 21-year-old kid in there, I really liked it. I thought the team was, but I thought it was. I think most Arsenal fans thought it was the perfect team. I don't know about you.
Well, so I mean, I would have preferred El Neni, and
Yeah,
the reason I would have preferred El Neni was because of facilitating Thomas Partey. I had issues, and I think Lokonga we're going to do a little bit of a special segment on because I had raised issues of his off the ball awareness and his ability to vacate zones when we first signed him. And I think I was very worried when I did see him in the pivot, but I had hoped if he was going to play, we would replicate the dynamics at Burnley. And I think we had said that in the preview. If he does play, that could be okay if Basuma's not starting, maybe. But I still would have preferred El Neni just for his security and what he offers for Thomas Partey. But Z, what about you, mate? Like, did you see the lineup and did you think, okay, easy day?
Look, I think even in the preview, I mean, we all predicted it to be an easy day, but when we saw the lineup, were you happy? I was happy. Everybody was happy, and that's the main thing. For the first time in a long time, I thought Arteta's got it right for the second week in a row with his lineup, and I think everybody predicted a win. And we looked at Brighton's lineup and we thought, no Bissouma, no Webster, no Welbeck. This is going to be an easy game, but how things can change after 90 minutes, eh? I think at the end of the day, I think we shouldn't really worry too much anyways. I think it looks like an off day for me. And that's the main thing, that these games, it won't happen every time.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't. For me, I saw Lokonga and I wasn't ecstatic. I'll be honest because I did want El Neni. I feel as though he is the type of profile that really lets Thomas Partey shine. And I felt without Granite, what I wanted to see in this next 8 to 10 game spectrum when we don't have Granite in there is I want Thomas to gain the progression reins. I want him to gain control of that midfield. And for me, that means facilitating him at his best. And that basically means having a profile like El Neni. So I think Lokonga could have done a good job, but I was worried about him vacating space, and especially in the counter press with Brighton. So I wouldn't say disappointed, but I was very hesitant about how he would perform. And it made it okay that Basuma wasn't starting. And so maybe you could rationalize, okay, you know what, we do have to see his level at some point, right? So there has to be a metric that we see. I think we got some answers here. Overall in the game, though, I think we're all going to differ a little bit about the impact going forward and what we saw on the day. So maybe I'll go to Willow. What was your general broad thoughts of the game, and what do you think went wrong?
I think I just want to go to the Lokonga thing first. I think this was definitely a good game to put him in on, talking about how Basuma wasn't there, Webster wasn't there. I think this was a good game. If you're going to throw a player into a Premier League game for him to start, 8-9 games a season, I think this was a good game to do it in. But we all saw the performance. He should have been subbed off at half time for maybe a Mohamed El Neni to get more control in the game, but we didn't do it. So I think that's what went wrong. I think our pivot got exposed badly. I think there was so much space for Brighton as well. The distribution of people wasn't good enough. Tomiyasu, Ramsdale, their distribution wasn't good enough. But we didn't win any second balls. We didn't win the duels. But I think something needed to change. At half time, it was good that we went in at 0-0. That was fine. But we needed to make a change because Brighton outplayed us. Brighton were outplaying us. They had more possession, much more possession. They were creating half chances. They were creating a bit. I mean, Brighton aren't very good at actually finishing it off. That's Brighton's problem. So I think we needed a substitution or two substitutions. And maybe even a tweak to the formation, but we didn't do anything. When did we even make our first sub? It was like in the 60th minute or something like that.
66
minutes. Way too late. And that is a criticism to the manager. He is way too. He waits way too long to actually make a substitution, to actually change the game. I don't know an Arsenal fan that went in at half time and thought, yes, we should keep going on with the exact same team, exact same tactics. We needed to make a change and the manager didn't.
So let's tease that out a bit, because I think I do want to go down to first half a little bit. But when do you think, Willow, is the right time if something's not working at halftime? Are you a fan of switching at a halftime team talk, or are you a fan of waiting to see how the play is going to go for a couple minutes and then see if things change? Because in my opinion, I think when I looked at the stats, the average substitution for managers in the Premier League was 61 minutes in terms of their first substitution. And so if I'm looking at something that's not going right, and on average that seems to be the median substitution rate, do you think it was too late, or would you rather have seen a halftime sub and go from there?
Look, either way you look at it, I know you can look at 60, 61 minutes, but that all differs in games, doesn't it? Every game is a different game. So I think you can make subs whenever you need to. Okay, I can understand maybe we should let it play out for 3-4 minutes. But to be honest, I saw a whole half and it really wasn't working. So I feel like you could have made a change at half time. But even if you didn't, okay, then make a change at 50 because we weren't good the first 5 minutes either. So make a change at 50. 66 minutes is way too late. There should have been a sub at least at 50 minutes. I can understand your point of maybe not doing the half-time change. Personally, I've done a half-time change, but if not, 50 minutes.
Okay, interesting. So Z, are you, if something's not going right, so not even just this game though, right? Like I want to tease this out only because I feel as though Emery was criticized for doing this as a manager. And like, are you a fan of if things aren't working in general? Like because I'm not trying to say that things were working, we shouldn't. I hope that's not what's coming across, but more so if things don't go well and they don't go to game plan, are you a fan of switching at halftime, immediately doing a radical system change?
When you end up switching, God, like I think when Emery used to do it, I think we used to see it every game, and it kind of undermined his system. And in the end, it just looked like he was taking the piss really when in the first half every game, and so I was not really a fan of that. And to be fair with Arteta, I see where you're coming from, Willow, where you think after the Brighton first half against Brighton, you wanted to see a change. But for me, if you look back at the game, who on the bench could have actually massively affected the way we had a build up? I don't think anybody that could have come on and could have changed things massively. Probably a change to the system would have been different. For example, the way Lokonga was on the left side in the 3. He shouldn't have been there in the first place. We should have been building up with Tomiyasu, Ben White, and Gabriel, and Lokonga and Xhaka should have been in the middle. But that something that wasn't happening. So I think if we had a change within the system, that would have been my next change before the subs. And ultimately, if you need to have fresher legs up front, then you bring on subs in the 60th minute, 65th minute. And I think Arteta did that. But at the end of the day, did we see any changes? Despite that, I don't think we saw much of a difference, and that's what I'm saying. Even after the 45th minute, if your tweaks within the game don't really make a difference, I don't think a sub could make much of a difference unless they're like super subs. And we all know Pepe and Lacazette didn't really make much of a difference. So yeah, man, I don't think you can blame Arteta on that on the second half when it comes to substitutions. I don't think so.
So it's tough for me because I see both sides of the argument where I feel that this game we didn't respect the fundamentals of a game state regardless of system. So what I mean by that, we weren't winning our second duels. We weren't aggressive in 1v1s. I think outside of our own box, we didn't dominate any kind of space. We didn't have technical security. So whether you play 4-2-3, 3-4-3, whatever system you want to insert into X, Y, and Z, we weren't doing those basic fundamentals. And then on the other hand, I feel as though how we set up wasn't right. And so for me, I'm kind of more of the opinion I don't like halftime substitutions. As a coach, I like to see things about changing little things about winning your 1v1 duels, see how things go after the first 10 minutes. And then I do typically make a sub around the 60th minute, typically for my own team. My issue came with when he did make the subs, I didn't agree with the subs too. So it really
that would be my issue as well.
So I wasn't necessarily upset at it being too late as much as Willow. I was more upset that I don't think the change he did was right in terms of what we needed.
But that's also why I'm upset. It was also because of that. Like I wanted an El Neni as well to come on and change the state. Sambi should not have stayed on.
Okay, and you know what? That I hear because I was on the same boat. I think I wanted to tease out the subs because this was an issue even from last year, right? Where I think there were times where the manager didn't get it right, and that happens. That happens in a season. And I guess the debate about when you change, what do you do a system change? I think we all wanted to see a consistent philosophy even this season, and we were all expecting ups and downs, but in terms of when you have that plan B, when does that become undermining versus consistency and philosophy? I think it's a fine line. I do think that we changed things this game though, and I do want to maybe get into the nitty gritty of the tactical part. But my overall feel on the game was we were second best at everything, in terms of not just system, tweaks, but winning your second balls, making sure that you were dominating your spaces. I think the best player for us so far really was Ben White, and he was all off the ball. It wasn't even on the ball stuff. And I feel as though Brighton had a very good press. I mean, they did, but there was space behind. I really push back on this notion that, they really changed much. They were very similar to how we played them last season, and there was space behind to attack them. In my opinion, we had a little disagreement pre-pod, but we had 3 or 4, in my opinion, 5 chances that, we really could have made more of situations when we were exploiting them down the wings. And I don't think we did. We didn't choose the right option, but that, for me, stems from not doing some of the things right that we normally do in terms of build-up, in terms of winning your 1v1 duels. And I think it was off. And when you do have an off day like that, I do think it's important to not concede. I do think it was important to get a clean sheet. And I think there were some uncharacteristic performances from players that I think we would argue had probably some of their best games since we've seen them, in terms of Tommy and Ramsdale, that were shocking at the beginning and then turned things around. But there were some key issues for me all across the team, that, didn't just stem from one poor buildup, one poor thought process. So, I mean, you do label that at the coach, in terms of setting the team out. But I think the players as well were just very poor back to front. I think maybe ESR had our best on the ball performance across the game.
Yeah, 100%.
But then White off the ball had probably our best game. And I mean, even then, like, I'm stretching. I think consistently across 90 minutes, those were the only 2. Otherwise, everyone had a fairly poor performance. What about you guys?
I think Gabriel was decent as well. I didn't have a problem with Gabriel. I thought he'd done some nice things as well. If I'm looking at who was the worst, even Saka. Saka first half, I actually thought he'd done some very nice things in the first half. And that ESR Saka chance when they were 2v1, I really like what Saka did because he stayed onside that whole time. He could have wandered offside, but at every point, Smith Rowe, Saka was always onside, ready for that pass, and he just made the wrong option. But so I think Saka was decent as well. If we're talking about who was actually decent that game,
I think also like what happened was because of the fact that we didn't really progress really well, and the fact that we were losing the balls in midfield, it really meant that Odegaard was left isolated and he wasn't able to actually receive the ball to help us with the progression that we lacked when we lacked because Xhaka wasn't there. So I think ultimately Odegaard had to be our worst player because he didn't really do anything in the game. And
Mm.
I think personally we could have played without him and it would have been the same result because that's how non-existent he was. But I think overall we actually need to look at the way we pressed, because I think that is really why the game ended up the way it did. I think it almost felt like the team refused to press, and it felt like the team was nervous, and it felt like we reverted back to the way we used to build up when Leno was here and Ramsdale had to go long, and that's something that really really annoyed me, because it showed to me that Ramsdale or Lokonga were nervous to receive the ball under pressure, and that's something that I really really want to see us move away from again, because that's not exactly why we bought Ramsdale in for. We bought Ramsdale in for was to to relieve the pressure, but ultimately I don't know why we saw that against Brighton. It really
I mean, I
confused me.
have some thoughts as to why. We can break it down tactically. I think there were some
Yeah.
really specific game state issues, but I want to throw it to Chris, who's joining us. How are you, mate? You good?
Yeah, man, I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Fresh haircut. You're looking much better than me for a first time.
Yeah.
But no, mate, we literally are just talking general thoughts before we were going to break down the first half. Some disagreement on the panel a little bit. What was your thoughts overall on the game first and the lineup, I guess?
Well, on the lineup, going into the game, I still thought, seeing that lineup, we still could have won the game. But I would have preferred El Neni than Lokonga just because of the defensive awareness. Even though on the ball, Lokonga's more expressive and better on the ball. I would have just preferred El Neni. Just in transition a bit more, he's a bit better than Lokonga. But on the game, I thought we didn't necessarily deserve a win. I don't really think we deserved a loss either. I think a draw was probably fair dues for both teams, because even though Brian had 21 shots, they only had 2 on target, and we had the same amount on target and only had 8 shots. So in general, I think we probably had a more clear-cut chance to score than Brighton did, where obviously Ramsdale was forced out to make a brilliant save, but we had the Emil chance, Oba hit the post, Saka had that early shot in the box. Like, they didn't register a shot on target till the second half. And I think the reason why we really lost is, I think it just goes down to we didn't win our duels and we didn't win second balls. We literally weren't able to sustain pressure at all. And whenever they came, and they were able to keep the ball and sustain pressure at times, because when we got it out of the box and cleared it, when Ben White got 4 clearances in the first half, whenever it just kept coming back because we couldn't win the ball when it got cleared. So I think we didn't win because we didn't win our duels and we couldn't claim second balls, but their final action was poor. So they didn't. We looked more likely to score, and I never necessarily feared we were going to concede, but we had the bigger chances in the game. But I think a draw is fair, if anything.
Interesting. So we do have some different opinions on the general thoughts of the game. Why don't we get nitty gritty? Because I think we're beating around the bush. We lost our duels. I do think it's worth noting. I don't know how the panel feels, but I really do feel when you see a performance like that, there are some fundamentals that we just didn't do. Winning your duels was a big one outside of our box, and I don't want to be pejorative in that sense, but I think it's worth pointing out that the team has to do better. We have to be better about getting ourselves up for games like this, right? I don't think that's something that we can ignore. But in the first half, I think there were some very key differences because Graham Potter and Arteta, they build very similarly in terms of their systems, and in terms of the counter press, they are actually very similar systems. And I wanted to put it to the panel. I've got ideas why I don't think things worked, but I'll go to Willow first. Mate, why do you think? Do you agree that the systems are similar? And if so, why did Brighton have a better foothold on the game than we did?
Yeah, I do think the systems are similar on what they do, but it's it's a difficult one really. It's Sorry, come back to me. I'm
No
my
worries, no
mind
worries.
is gone. My
I know,
mind
I'm
is
being
gone.
mean. I'm being
No,
mean.
no, it's just sorry, my mind's just gone.
No worries. Here, I'll come back to you. We'll go. Z, what about you,
Yeah.
mate? So do you agree? And I guess that the systems that we're playing here on show were very similar, but there was a clear person that dominated space, and both had issues of the weather. There's some comments on Twitter
Yeah.
that I think they're taking your words a little bit out of context, but why was one team more dominant in their spaces than the other if they had similar systems?
I think one thing that we kind of failed to acknowledge, obviously, was the fact that despite Brighton and Arsenal setting up probably very similarly, I also think that Brighton decided to play very direct in this game, and they decided to go long as well. And when it came to their build up, especially, it was three of the centre backs wide, but ultimately it was the goalkeeper that was clipping the balls over to Cucurella, and when Cucurella won the balls, that ultimately led to an attack or a chance at goal where Modere would come in, if that's how you pronounce his name. Modere would come in and just blast a shot at goal, and that would just infiltrate their statistics as well. So that was literally it, because what that did was ultimately stop the counter press that we could have done, and it didn't really, it kind of bypassed the way, bypassed the counter press, and that was a game plan that literally was the difference between our last two games versus Brighton, because our last two games versus Brighton, we counter pressed them, and that's how we scored the goals, by the way. But in this game, he didn't really allow us to do that because he decided to go very direct and go long ball with Sanchez. And I think that's something that maybe Arteta needs to be a bit more wise. That not all you shouldn't always play the same system against the one manager that plays similarly to you, because ultimately he will try to outsmart you, and this is what he did at this time. And it's gonna happen, in Arteta's career, when you're gonna have managers that try to outwit you. This is why I was worried about the game. I had a feeling that Graham Potter was going to try and outwit Arteta, and in this case he did. But that's going to happen in games. And look, we did well not to lose. That's the main thing. Did well not to lose.
So Chris, mate, like I've got some thoughts. I'm biting my tongue a little bit here because I think similar systems. Okay, one person dominated space. I'm going to pose the same question to you. What was the reason that one team dominated their spaces and the other team didn't, even if they have very similar systems?
I just think, well, for us, I think we just don't have players necessarily as good in big spaces in general, and I think Arteta tactically annoyed me with a build-up, because with last week against Spurs, we had a 3-2 build-up, but with Jacques and Partey central, and the back three was Gabriel White and Tomiyasu, and this week it was Lokonga dropped in the left centre back role that Xhaka was doing last season, and I think having Lokonga as the person dropping really hurt us. He wasn't good. He couldn't find angles on the ball. He was just poor, but in general, right forward on that left centre back, left back role isn't necessarily good, anyways. And Partey was isolated a lot, leading into him losing duels because he was outnumbered a lot, and I think he left us outnumbered in midfield, having Lokonga dropping instead of using the back three he could have used last week. And in our press, Odegaard just didn't seem to want to press in the 4-4-2 press we had early in the game, so he switched to a 4-3-3 with Saka and Oba pressing higher rather than Odegaard doing it. And yeah, to be honest, from our side, I think Odegaard and Lokonga in build-up and in the press were the two problematic players, just because they weren't. Well, Odegaard just didn't really do it and didn't really step up, but Lokonga just wasn't good in his position, and the position wasn't good for him. I think he should have used what he did last week and kept the midfield central. But yeah, that's what I think, to be honest.
Yeah, so there was a couple issues. I mean, we kind of touched on it in a little bit of our preview, but I agree with you, Chris. Like this idea that we changed our build-up. We did. It wasn't like Burnley. When I did have Lokonga coming in, I did say I hope he plays him like Burnley, where we have the pivot close together and we had Lokonga picking up from the center backs. But we didn't build that way. We changed back to our Xhaka build-up in terms. We still did a 3-2-5, which is our broad system, and the reason I bring it up is because we actually tweaked the system this time for Brighton. And we had the same system, but we tweaked it slightly in terms of the opponent, where we put that deep lying playmaker role in the back as opposed to having Tomiyasu, which in my opinion was a vital mistake. So when you take out a pivot like that and they have Brighton's press, who by the way always have three in midfield, you leave basically Thomas Partey on an island to do his own stuff. And for me, when you've got Tomiyasu, who also has a very poor game as an outlet, you needed Odegaard or someone on the right-hand side to have a good game if one of your right-hand outlets is poor. So immediately, I think Tomiyasu really suffered from the weather. I do agree. I think I hate using that, but he looked very shook, very indecisive, which isn't him. Typically he's two-footed, he's quick with his passing and his progression between the lines. That's one of his strengths. And we didn't see any of that. I think it also stemmed back from Ramsdale's distribution. So one of the big things that we highlighted with Aaron Ramsdale was he has an excellent clip ball wide, right? But one thing that he does struggle with is between the line passes on the floor vertically. That's something that he doesn't do well. And when you have a very rainy, windy day, you can't use those clip ball wide. And I think what was happening, and I don't know if my analysis is wrong in your guys' opinion, but he ended up trying to do the clip balls wide, but we never got control of anything. And so he just went long. He abandoned the idea of our buildup. And when he saw that Tomiyasu couldn't do it, there were very few times that I saw us actually attempt to build on the floor between the lines. Whereas Brighton, I saw Robert Sanchez fire between the lines to Gross, Lallana very specifically, who had then fired off to Cucurella. And so for me, while the systems were very similar, one goalkeeper was able to fire consistently between the lines on the floor to start, and another goalkeeper wasn't. And we didn't have the pivot close together that we could win the second balls when those long balls came. So even if the buildup wasn't working and you did go long, we didn't win the second balls because we left Partey on an island in the middle. And this kind of happened throughout the entire game. And I did say Lokonga and Odegaard were my worst performing players on the day. And I don't think Odegaard ever performs in these situations. And maybe I want to have a little bit of a segment here because I feel as though Odegaard and Lokonga, who in my opinion are the worst players that played kind of yesterday. Do you guys feel that Lokonga's maybe deficiencies at this point show us his level in terms of position? Can we be certain this is the type of player that we're seeing? Are we seeing more of a Thomas Partey air that the some of us feel, or is it too soon? Is just this idea that this performance was poor on the day? We can't really draw conclusions from his EPL adaptation. What do you think, Willow?
I feel like you've got to balance a pivot at the end of the day, and I did think we could throw him in this game because of who Brighton were missing. I thought this is a kind game to throw him in. It obviously ended up not being a kind game, so I think it is trying to show. And I think there's been a lot of talk about Lokonga about he can play six, he is a box to box. Trying to find out what position he is, and I think a game like this kind of does show you. Okay, maybe him and Partey aren't best suited for each other. And especially if you want to unlock Thomas Partey, because I think that's what a lot of Arsenal fans want this season, is to see the best of Thomas Partey. We signed an elite midfielder and we want to get the best out of him. And we haven't quite seen that due to injuries and different circumstances. So I think it is about, and I said this at the start of the season, is why I wasn't 100% happy with this transfer window, is because I wanted a defensive midfielder in who could get the best out of Thomas Partey. And we obviously didn't do that. So I think, long term, seeing Granit Xhaka out for the while he is as well, I do think in January we do need to pick up a defensive midfielder, because I don't think Lokonga is quite ready to, he's not ready to be that kind of partner for Partey. I think he is kind of a Partey understudy. He's a very good player, but because of his positional awareness, I don't think he's ready, especially if we're looking to get top 4 this season. I think we need to bring in a defensive midfielder who can do what Lokonga can't do.
So, Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I do feel as though that he's more of a Thomas Partey heir. I've said that I really don't know. I like that he scans, and so I'm not worried that it's going to be a long-term issue on his positioning. But I did say I worry about him vacating his space. I think he leaves his space. He ball watches a bit. And the biggest thing with Lokonga for me, guys, is when there's a turnover. It's not even just that he gets sucked up the pitch, but when there's a turnover, he's not aggressive running back. And that for me is an issue because that happens anywhere on the pitch. It doesn't just have to be up top. You know, you're going to misjudge challenges. But in my opinion, you need to be aggressive with the ball. But you know, what confuses me is when he has the ball, he's aggressive in running and penetrating space. Like he's not slow both ways. So it's not an athletic issue. And that's where my head's at with him, where I do think it's a struggle. But Z, there's two performances here with Lokonga that's played deeper, but in slightly different roles, right? So he had a poor sample size here with Brighton playing the Shaka deep lying pivot role, right? But Burnley, he has a cameo where he was a 6, right? And to be fair, pushed Thomas Partey a little bit up, and you know they had a good game in that cameo with Burnley, right? Is the dream of Lokonga as a 6? Is it too much, or should we just know how to use your player? And it's not so much where they play, but how you play with others. What do you think about that?
I think there's obviously a clash of styles because I think both of them are quite aggressive in the way they make their passes. But at the end of the day, if there was like a specific instruction from the manager saying, look, Sambi, you stay deeper and you let Thomas, dictate the play, then ultimately that could have worked. But yesterday, it just felt like you keep on saying, it felt like Thomas was left alone to do everything, and that was my main issue because I don't think Sambi's ever operated in that left centre back role, and I don't think Thomas is there to clean up all the mistakes in midfield, clean up and try and get hold of the loose balls in the midfield, and also try and progress the ball to Odegaard. I don't think he could have done everything in one, and you need someone there like a Sambi to assist with that. So I feel like, look, if we try and give it a few more games, hopefully not in the next couple coming games, because I feel like we need to win those games. So I think El Neni should play there. But in the future, if there's time in like the Carabao Cups, try and test it with Zambia deeper and let Thomas Partey dictate play. Then I think we should give it a go and see where it takes us. But otherwise, now I don't think we can afford to even experiment in midfield. I think we need to win our battles in midfield, and ultimately El Neni and Partey have shown enough in last season that they can work well together. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you make a lot of sense there. I mean, Chris, I'm going to give you a chance to kind of weigh in here. So you've got Lokonga playing 6 2 times, one pretty good at Burnley, one pretty poor at Brighton. Does it matter who your partner is, or does it matter your tactical instruction? And are you ready to maybe make him a Thomas Partey heir all out, or does he still have future as a 6 or as an anchor in the future? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the difference between the teams, Burnley and Brighton, the central presence from Brighton is just much more. Brighton are much better centrally and have better midfielders than Burnley and do more centrally. And I think Lokonga's defensive awareness, even since the day he signed, we've spoken about it here, like being an issue. And what you're talking about, him jogging back and sometimes getting caught out of position and too high up the pitch, it benefited Sanchez and playing them balls in the middle to Lallana, who could spray it straight to Cucurella, because even chances they created came straight down the middle and Lokonga getting caught out in the wrong position, and they were facing our defense straight away because he's meant to be the deepest midfielder, but there were many a time where he was caught above Partey. So I just think his natural instinct is to go higher anyways. So to put me, I've never really seen him as a 6. And although it's come out of his word that sometimes he plays 6, sometimes he plays 8, he can do both. I think his natural instinct just is to go higher up the pitch and express himself. And defensively, that's his worst aspect. And I think he needs to improve his controlled aggression, which could happen because he's very aggressive and to limit that is very possible. But I'm not sure on his positional awareness improving, which it very much needs to, but I'm not sure he can in the future. I hope he can, because him being able to play 6 very well will only benefit us as an option. But I really think he's more suited to a higher role just from what I've seen. But he's played well one time, but the left centre back role didn't help him because he saw less angles, and he's just not that good on his left foot.
Yeah, so you know what it is for me, mate. Like I think people confuse on Twitter, but the moment he signed, I called him a conducting 8. Right? That was my specific profile for him. And I do that with Thomas Partey, and my reason is because Lokonga plays better with the game in front of him when he gets to run onto the game. And by the way, Thomas Partey does very similar. When he's able to see the game and he's able to run into space, that's where he's best. Now, Thomas is excellent going the other way. Lokonga isn't so much. So the weakness in terms of having that at 6 or 8 is far more exposed at 6 than it is at 8. And by the way, we see very similarities to Miguel Aziz, if I'm really going to draw a comparison in the academy, in terms of a player that has shown to play multiple positions, but in my opinion, struggles positionally and struggles in terms of his scanning. And, he scans well to receive, but when you recognize that you're too high up the pitch, you need to be aggressive running back. If you're not aggressive over those first 5 yards, then I'd rather you have that limitation higher up the pitch and not in the middle of the park, because that kind of ruins my structure. So for me, I've never thought Lokonga, I don't hide it. I never think that he is going to be a 6 personally. I think he's going to be a conducting 8. He's still young. He could prove us both wrong, Chris. But I think that this game does really expose the fears, at least that I really highlighted when he did come. And I wanted him to be a little bit used in a different manner. And so I'm not crushing the kid, but he should use this as a learning experience. Absolutely.
I hope he proves us wrong, though, because it saved the club money.
Massive amounts of money.
If he could play DM, fix his positional awareness, controlled aggression, he'd be one of the best 6s in the world, and then he'd have one of the best pivots in him and Partey. So hopefully he does prove us wrong.
Would neither of you want like a 6 in January though, because of the kind of like granny jacket? Yeah, like because that's if we really want to push for top 4 this season, I think that's what we need is a 6.
For me, with or without a new 6, I think we can get top 4. But if we get a 6, I really don't want it to be a deep line playmaker.
Yeah,
I really need a different profile, because if you have Xhaka, who's one of the best in the world in that role, there's no point in getting another one of that role while he's still here. So get a different type of midfielder if they're available, and if you can bring them in without it relying on you selling.
So I think the biggest thing for me, mate, is maybe just to tie a bow on the Lokonga segment, unless anybody else has any last minute thoughts. Anybody? Once, twice, sold.
No.
Yeah. So for me, the biggest issue is.
Sorry. I want to clarify though. He's not a scrub.
No, of course not. We're not. It's ridiculous to say that he's a scrub. I just want to be objective. When the man has a bad game, he has a bad game. I think you know what it is, guys. The fans have fallen in love with transition and half-turn ability. What I mean by that, they associate all the midfield problems with Xhaka's cons and his athletic cons. So when you see a player that has a little bit of half-turn ability, they're like, oh, he's the answer. And my fear is when you jump into that mold without understanding somebody's limitations, you start to misprofile him, and then you hammer him when he has and then you hammer him when he has a bad game, when honestly it's not his rule. So I don't want to be final again, but the one thing that this build-up structure, just maybe to tie it off of, and I don't know if someone's mentioned it yet though, the idea of having an El Neni has 2 specific benefits. Okay, El Neni would drop in between center backs and have them split. That's how we would build up if El Neni was playing, right? When we have a 3-2. How we played was putting Lokonga in there, and we left Thomas Partey on an island. Why I'm so upset is if you're going to have somebody in the left channel in terms of Lokonga, right? If that's how you wanted to play, wouldn't it make sense having a lefty, aka Gabriel, be the one in that channel who, by the way, has shown an improvement this season in short and medium range passing, as well as disguised balls between the lines. In fact, we saw it at Spurs, correct?
Big improvement, yeah.
So that is
That's
my
exactly how we did it against Spurs as well.
Exactly. And so that is my Mikel criticism. So it's not just the fact that El Neni should have played and facilitated Thomas Partey. It's how our areas in the pitch would have functioned very, very differently with that system. That's what El Neni provides. So I think when I start saying I prefer El Neni, it's not just so much the quality, it's what that impacts on the team and where that puts Gabriel. Where does that put White? Where does that put Tommy and Tierney? You know, that is the impact. It's not just, El Neni is poor and he's not progressive. But you know what, guys? You can have Gabriel and White be far more progressive. The reins fall on them too. It's not so much El Neni. El Neni drops in to become an option, but then that means that Tommy is far, far higher up the pitch. That means Partey's higher up the pitch. That means Tierney's up the pitch. That means when Tierney is up the pitch, you have Gabriel in that hole, not Lokonga, right? So those are the implications from having an El Neni in the team. Not so much, I have a sideways passer in the team. I actually think you improve the collective between the line passing with an El Neni. And, that's kind of why I want that. But, guys, what do you guys think about that? And any last-minute thoughts on that? And maybe we'll go to a second half.
Would you want to get in a left-footed midfielder in then?
No. So for me, I would rather get an upgrade in an El Neni role because I feel that by the time January comes, Xhaka's back. And, Xhaka's not missing through AFCON. And we have that profile, a lefty deep-lying playmaker in the squad. So I don't want another lefty deep-lying playmaker because also, guys, we have Charlie Patino, who in my opinion is that same role. And I really believe in his potential. So for me, it makes zero sense to even recruit a deep-lying playmaker, period. Because our best youngsters are deep-lying playmakers. And we have Granit Xhaka, we have that profile in the squad. So for me, even if, you want to employ, Granit Xhaka, cool, but he's among the best in that department already. We have that profile. So to me, it seems very redundant to buy another person in the same zone.
I think just based on that, I think there are two players that are available that have 6 months left as well. That's probably Kamara from Marseille.
Yep.
And I don't know if he fits that profile exactly, but Kessie from Milan as well. I think he has two players. I think we should have a look at if that's what we want to bring in, and ultimately they are both upgrades on El Neni for sure.
Basuma's only got 1 year and 6 months left as well.
Yeah, I mean, Basuma does have that, right? So I mean, it's a very tricky one because Basuma has what, a year and 6 months, no, right?
A year and 6 months, yeah. And then as you said, we all talked about Kamara in the summer. He had a year left. We could have got him for cheap. And the deals we did, obviously, with Marseille, with Saliba and Guendouzi. Now he's only got 6 months left. We've already got a good relationship with Marseille. It's an easy deal. What could be done.
Yeah, I agree with you, Willow. That's the one thing where I'm really upset with the club because I felt it was critical. Everybody knows my opinion. I'm here as a PNP merchant. I'm going on the timeline for it. But I think you could get both players, Willow. I think you could sign Kamara on a pre-contract and you can get Basuma, to come in now. And this idea of AFCON, guys, you guys do know they only miss 2 games max. Even if they get to the final, they miss 2 games. So I think to not buy a player for fear of 2 games is a little bit ridiculous to me, in my opinion. I think it's a problem. It's an issue. I hope when we return after the international break, we don't see this buildup. Maybe to tie a segment there, I don't want to see us try to fix the Xhaka void again with somebody in that left-hand channel. Get El Neni in there. Let him operate in the center. Put Gabriel at the left-hand channel. I want that to be our build-up. I think Ramsdale won't be as poor distribution-wise. He made note of it in his post-match. And I think Tommy got some good experience in terms of English football. Z, you were mentioning a cold, rainy night in Stoke prior to us talking offline. Look, guys, I think Tommy was shook. I really do. And I don't know how you guys felt, but I thought he was very poor in the first half and uncharacteristically so. But I get that because he's never experienced this type of play, this type of counter press and the rain. Like he's never got that. I thought he was very, very good in the second half. He really adapted well. But I don't know. Maybe I want to move to the second half really quickly, and then maybe some final thoughts because I don't know. It's tough. I feel like there's moments that you can highlight where okay, we maybe broke through, but we had the subs, Laka and Pepe. I kind of mentioned it briefly earlier in the pod. I would have gone El Neni and Martinelli because I felt that Odegaard really was poor. Lokonga really was poor. And I wanted Emil to move center, which he did, to be fair. I mean, he didn't do the sub I wanted with Pepe, but he moved Emil central, right? So that was the most important thing that we had to do to change things up because we weren't having any central control. And Saka kept playing on the right. So I was really happy that when Pepe came on, we didn't switch to accommodate him. But Willow, I'll go to you, mate. Like we both agree on the El Neni sub, but what is your thoughts on essentially Laka and Martinelli? Is that the wrong call, or did Laka bring a little bit more control that we were missing?
I mean, I really, I love Martinelli, and I thought, Albert did have chances to actually get in behind. He did have that chance where he got in behind, but he messed up the touches. So I thought, maybe if that was Martinelli in that situation, he could do something. And the way Brighton were playing so far at the pitch and so heavy on the press, I think it would have been really nice for Martinelli. I feel like he really could have got in behind and even actually helped us with the press as well because we weren't winning the ball back nearly quick enough against Brighton. So Martinelli, we know what he's like. He's going to come in, he's going to press, he's going to be that dog where we're going to be winning the ball a lot easier. But to be fair, Laka didn't do bad when he came on. He actually did give us a bit of control. Where Alba couldn't hold up the ball, Laka was holding up the ball, and we got the chance from that. That was a Smith Rowe to Saka chance. That came from Lacazette holding that ball up and passing it into Smith Rowe. He done really well. So it wasn't.
Well, I think it was Lokonga. I think, to be fair, he did backboard, right? Like he did the booty roll.
Yeah, he did the booty roll, and it worked. It worked.
And he passed it back to Lokonga, who did a great first-time ball to spring Emil through.
But it was still nice hold-up play. It was still a nice booty roll. You got to respect the bunda. So, I don't know. It wasn't bad. I would have liked to have seen Martinelli though. I think he would have made a bit more of an impact. But I wouldn't say the Lacazette sub was horrible.
Yeah, so for me it was the Pepe sub, I'll be honest, guys. I'm fairly done with Pepe. And even now he had multiple times isolated with Dan Burn and Shane Duffy. And I just don't feel that he made his chances really count. And I think the reason that I wanted Martinelli is what you said in terms of the dog and that mentality. I thought we were flat. We were flat as a team. And when you're flat as a team, you need your substitutions to inject pace, but also respect in a sense. And Martinelli is aggressive in his press. He's aggressive in his duels. And I think we could have used that energy to feed off of, in a sense. I wasn't atrociously horrified with the Laka sub. But for me, you had to bring on Martinelli, right? Because I feel as though that would have upped the press, where Laka is a willing presser as well. And I think it would have given us a little bit extra impetus with that front four to really push back at the space behind. Because like I said, I really push back on the notion that, Brighton didn't have spaces behind them. They did the same press that they did against us. And in my opinion, we just didn't exploit it. But I'll go to Z, mate. What do you think on the substitutions? Laka and Pepe. And of course, Ainsley, I think, didn't Ainsley come on later as well?
Yeah, he came on the I think it was the 87th minute or something.
Yeah, so I don't want to include him.
No.
Very minimal impact. But what did you think of the subs, mate?
I think what the subs kind of showed us was really what we missed from the game. I mean, I think we'll say Lacazette anyways. I think because we missed his hold-up play, and that's something that Aubameyang failed to do in the first half and in the stages of the second half. It felt like Aubameyang just couldn't even keep the ball, even if he had super glue on his feet. So it was just really, really just hard to watch, really. But I don't know. I mean, I would have injected a little bit more pace into the game. So I would have had Pepe and Martinelli come on as well as Lacazette. I just brought in more attacking options, really. But it just felt like Pepe, when he came on, he was just so lethargic on the ball. He added no energy. His touch was loose. And ultimately, I just feel like we could have just subbed in a cone, and he would have made more difference for us in that second half. I just don't know why he keeps on, playing the way he does, really. So I don't know. I wasn't really happy with the subs, but I don't think the subs would have changed the game massively because of the way it was set up in terms of build up, anyways. So yeah,
Yeah. No, I hear you, mate. I think the one thing also that I like is Martinelli has a history of doing this to the team as well, by the way. Like the two times that he was reintroduced to the team were times when we were very, very low. And just his energy lifted the mood of other players. His effervescent pressing rubbed off on other players. And I just feel that with the space behind as well with Brighton, very specifically, we needed somebody that was aggressive in their duels, but willing to run into that space. Because even if Laka was willing to come in, we had Saka that was willing to come in. I feel as though we didn't have enough willing runners that were willing to really press at them. But Chris, do you agree with that? Like, were you upset not to see Martinelli as a sub, or do you feel the subs were justified and really it was just a poor day at the office and we got to basically chalk it up to that? You can have bad days.
Well, I was even later in the game. I was thinking, "Oh, let's bring Martinelli on," but then I realized Pepe and what's his name, Pepe and Lacazette had already come on, so there was no bringing Martinelli on. I really would have preferred him to come on than Pepe because, as you said, the intensity and pressing he brings just every single time he's on the pitch lifts up this team, and I would have preferred to, but Pepe did help in a sense with because Ramsdale did go long to him and he did win his aerial duel. So it because Ramsdale kept going long and it did help. And the one time he actually went short, we nearly scored with a mill. So it was weird with the balance, but I would have preferred Martinelli to come on, but it was just a bad day at the office, and we just although there were tactical things I would have changed, you simply can't. 9 times out of 10, if you're gonna lose your second balls and your defensive and offensive duels, you're gonna lose the game. You're not gonna win the game, and that's just what happened. To be honest, I would have brought on Nelly because I think he would have given us more impetus, but it really was just a bad day at the office, and we all have these days, and it's good that when we did have this day, I didn't feel like we were gonna concede and we didn't lose.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, mate. Sure. Oh, go ahead, Will. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I agree with that. That's the one thing I'm loving at the moment is how solid this defense is looking, clean sheet after clean sheet. Like we're looking like this is the most confident. I don't know about you boys, but this is the most confident I've been in a backline in years, absolute
100%.
years. And just to say on the Pepe thing, the way he came on and was playing, I'd have subbed Martinelli on for him after 5 minutes. Jesus fucking Christ, he was bad.
Oh
Yeah,
God,
exactly.
no. I think about doing that, but like I saw Duncan Ferguson do it to Moise Kean after 19 minutes. He subbed him off after subbing him on, and you just kill a player's confidence. And I don't think we can afford to risk killing Pepe's confidence because it's already looking low. And but I don't think we can risk killing anybody's confidence in this team because you're gonna need everybody at some point.
Yeah, mate. So, look, I think overall, maybe we can do some last minute overall thoughts where I think we started out very different in terms of our mindset about the game, but I think we kind of veered together where there was some really clear tactical issues that I think Mikel got wrong, right? In terms of this game. And I don't know, maybe I'll go to Willow with you first, mate. Like, bad performance, but is there something to be said that even in a poor day at the office where just nothing went right, like the coach did poor, the players did poor, we got a clean sheet and we escaped that a very tough ground, in my opinion. Like the Amex, not many people win at the Amex. Like, we had absolutely some good luck against Brighton last year, don't get me wrong, but not many teams win at the Amex. Like, it's not a happy hunting ground for many. And they are, despite them not having Webster, Basuma, and Welbeck, I thought they were immensely improved, Brighton as a whole, even against Palace. Like they didn't play like they didn't have those players. They were very good. Like we were poor, but they were very good as well. What do you have to say about poor day, but we got a clean sheet and we didn't lose? Is that a game that we lose last season?
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. Because someone would put a stupid challenge in, would probably give away a penalty, or something would happen. There'd be a lapse of concentration. So, obviously, in this kind of position, there's positives and negatives. So there is a positive. We kept the clean sheet. We're still looking solid at the back. As it said, Brighton had 22 chances, but were you ever really worried about Brighton scoring? Because I wasn't.
Never.
I know they had that chance where Ramsdale came out and made a great save, but apart from that, I really wasn't worried about them scoring. It was always going to be, I just don't want to draw this game 0-0. So that is why I'm annoyed, because they were missing key players. So that is a game we should be winning. But I'm not gonna throw my head in the sand. Yeah, I'm not gonna throw my toys in out the pram and just get annoyed and all that, because it's one game. Look, we've got Aston Villa, Watford, and Crystal Palace coming up. That's the games really now. We've got to get 9 points out of that. That's for me. We just got to move on from this. It was a bad performance. Let's move on. We still got the point, and there's still positives. So
Are we playing Watford away from home?
We are. Watford's away.
Why do they always get a new manager before we play them?
It's okay, but we're like the 4th or 5th game.
No, Watford's at home.
Is it? Sure? I thought it was away.
No, it's at our stadium.
Okay. So
good.
No, it's not too bad. I mean, look, guys, like Palace is the next big game, right? And for me, they play a lone pivot. And this for me is, I think I forget about Brighton, and I can accept having a bad day if we go out there and we do the business versus Palace, and we don't play anything weird where we don't repeat this build-up against a Kouyaté lone pivot. Like there's an opportunity to outwork them in midfield right now, and I need the pivot to play how we did against Spurs, right? And if Mikel does that, that's going to be a worry. And I'm going to be worried that that's how he sees us replacing the Xhaka void. But Z, mate, like, do you agree? Do you feel as though bad day, let's close the book, forget the noise, 100%. And let's focus on the next game? And if, we see a pattern, then we can start to get upset?
Yeah, no, like I said, I don't think there's any need to overanalyze the game. It was just a bad day in the office. We didn't do the basics, right? And that's it. I think we just need to draw a line under it. And we've got tough games coming up after the international break, where we play Crystal Palace and Aston Villa in the same week. I think we play Crystal Palace on the Monday and the Villa on the Friday. And these games are the ones that we need to win. And after that we win, we'll probably be in a better place, because I'm sure, United and all the other teams will drop points in the upcoming games anyway. So I think it will look clearer after that. So I'm not really fussed anyways.
Yeah, mate. No, I agree. Christina, your team, Palace, our boy Patty V. What do you think about Brighton and the context for our season? Because I think a lot's been said. Look, we were confident, to be fair, on the preview, and I think on paper, I'm still going to back it. On paper, we should have won. And I think that's half of the frustration maybe I'm getting from Yellow, right? In terms of, we should have won, right? And there were very good conditions for us to win, but we didn't. And so whether you put that down to a bad day at the office, tactical tweaks, which I think we addressed really quite well.
I think it was both.
Yeah, and it's a bit of both, right? But what do you feel is the impact long term? Is it just bad day at the office, like the boys have said, or is it more?
I think it was just a bad day at the office, the same way we've said it, same way Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, and Ben White said it. It was just a poor day for them.
Yeah.
On and off the ball, generally. Well, not Ben White, he was great off the ball, but it was just a poor day for the team in general, to be honest. And we still had the chance to get the win, weirdly. But going on to Palace, I think, even though I've shouted Palace's praises since they got Vieira on the 4th of July, I just think their system is set up for us to do very well. But I really want Elneny to play, just because they've got serious threats in transition in central midfield, with Gallagher on the right wing, with Oleson on the left wing, with Zaha up top, Edouard. They've got very good players in transition.
And I don't think Olisa started. He's mainly come off as a sub, right? And Gallagher's more right wing, right?
Yeah. He's come off the bench, and Jordan Ayew's played right wing, and Gallagher in midfield. But they play a lone pivot in Cheku Kouyaté, who isn't made for that role, to be honest. So,
yeah.
But they've got good players, and we can win against Palace. Like we should have won on paper against Brighton.
No, for sure, and I'm very positive. But what I do want to see, guys, is that El Neni switch because I'll tell you why. Gallagher's right wing, and I want him facing Gabriel, not Lokonga. I don't want a
Yeah.
repeat of what we've seen against Brighton. And when I'm looking at Edouard, I'm okay with El Neni tracking Edouard into midfield. I'm not okay with Lokonga tracking Edouard, into midfield or facing up Gallagher. And so the implications of having a 3-2 with that Lokonga deep is really, really poor. And I need Mikel to learn and adapt because he did it against Spurs, right, guys? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, bad against Brighton. That means you only did that, right? He did it against Spurs. So I need him to recognize that, look, this is the way to beat, especially somebody that only has a lone pivot in midfield. Like, use your experience about being outnumbered in midfield to your advantage, right? Don't make the same mistakes. And I think this is maybe a critique that many fans rightfully have concerns about Mikel. Is he too stubborn to change? Is he not? Can he adapt to new things? I have my thoughts. I know Chris does as well. But I think, and I think Z and like the whole panel, like we all think he can. But it is a valid concern. Can the man adapt his principles? Right? I think that's a fair question. And I think Palace represents an excellent opportunity too. So yeah, I really do encourage people just calm down. Yes, it is a bad day at the office, but again, we didn't lose. I think green shoots. This was Ben White's best performance in an Arsenal shirt. I think that's huge. Yep. I think that him accepting responsibility like that is what we've needed. I haven't seen the Ben White from Leeds or even from Brighton, and that's good. That's exciting to me because I'm seeing little green shoots off the ball. But guys, we haven't seen a third of what this guy can do on the ball, and I really feel that we need to see it.
I think it's positive though that he's had he was very good against Burnley, very good against Spurs, and very good against Brighton, and it was all off the ball. Yep. Because the first game he was hassled, and a lot of people were talking about, oh, he's going to get bullied off the ball. He can't do anything aerially.
No, he smashed some narratives about being bullied. I think it was stupid against Tony, who, by the way, has done excellent against Van Dijk. Like, this isn't just a guy that is kind of no scrub. I do look at him as more of a more secure Ollie Watkins, which is saying a lot because I think Ollie has done really, really well in the league. But I think on Ben, the big thing, I guess what I'm getting at is he hasn't had his I've arrived moment. And I don't count the Spurs tackle as I've arrived. Like, he's done some really good things, He's had some good patches. I need a dominant performance from him. And we're due one. We are. Like, I can see him bubbling. But I take some really good solace that, like Willow, like you said, I never felt worried about conceding in this game, despite all the inconsistencies that we had. And I think there was more us shaking our fists at the screen, like, just fucking score. I just want the goddamn win, But I would really push back. I would say I wasn't worried about them scoring, despite them dominating space and how annoyed you might be. I was never worried about them scoring and conceding, which for me is a huge positive because I think that's sustainable over a league season. You're going to have days where your touch is off and the team is just not on it, right? But when that happens, you can't lose and you can't kind of lose goals as well. That's what I tell my teams. Like, if you're going to be shit, don't concede. You never
That's what I was saying earlier. We had our worst performance, or a very bad performance all round, and we still never really look like conceded. And it's good that when everybody's off, you can still like come together and not concede and still look like scoring. Because I want to speak lastly anyways on the Emil chance, because I think the problem with Emil's chance is that Emil didn't go far post. I don't think the pass to Saka ever was on because the defender did very well. He did what Van Dijk did a couple of years ago against Spurs, where he blocked off the passing lane and then comes close, which forces you to shoot. It was very good defending. I just think he should have shot far post rather than
near post. You're right. That was the only thing. If anything, in the split second, I think he went a bit wider than he could.
He took it wider than he needed to.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Otherwise, no.
I think he was going to open a passing angle, just in case. But I really think if he went far post and he had more chance of scoring.
No, but I'm with you, mate. Like, those are the little things that I tell my players that you do, though. Like, those are fundamentals. Like when you are running wide and the angle's tight, don't go close. I never always aim far post. Always aim in the mixer. assume someone's going to be there or aim far post, like the rebound will come out that way. I don't want it coming back at you on a close angle. So I think he'll learn. Those are some experience, little tweaks.
Yeah.
But
And it's
also,
great he's
I
in
don't
them
think we
positions.
deserved it. If
No, he was our best player. He was our best player.
He was.
Yeah. So
I don't think we deserved the win. Just
No.
saying.
No, we didn't.
No.
We
We
didn't.
didn't. If we got that win, it would have been very lucky. And we didn't deserve a win, but I don't think we deserve to lose either.
No.
Yeah, so tough one, guys. Look, I think it's about. I think we pretty much have said as much as we can on the game. I think we close a chapter. We move. We are unbeaten in 4. I think overall, if you were to say over the next 4 games we get 10 to 12 points, I think people would have bit your hand off. And you know what? I'm actually very happy that we had this type of performance, but result before an international break. It doesn't allow for complacency. We do have a run of games right now, and I think. And I don't know, maybe Willow and Z, you guys are a little bit more pessimistic than like me and Chris, but I think this type of result is critical in terms of looking at 8 to 10 games down the line and being okay with things, where.
No, I don't think I'm quite pessimistic in terms of this, because I feel like you just mentioned it as well. Like we're 4 games unbeaten.
Mm-hmm.
4 games unbeaten. But look, we should build on that. We should go another 5-6 games unbeaten and just build on and have a record where we went like 10, 15, 20 games unbeaten. I just want to see that. I just want to see us building on something, even if it's a draw. Just don't lose the game.
No, see, I rule out. Look, we got Anfield in 4 games. Like you sometimes just got to take the L. So
listen, when it comes to Arsenal, I never think we're going to lose.
We've got Anfield in 5 games.
Okay, in 5 games, but still.
Well, you know what I would love, guys? Mikel has never had a 5-game winning run. We got 4. We did it now. Let's work towards that, and I'm confident versus Palace. Let's regroup. I think.
Sorry, Vieira, but we need to go. We need to do something to you. In fact, I don't care about you, Vieira. Palace, we need to beat you, man. Honestly.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. So you know what, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. I think just for everybody, if you're listening, kind of on the pod, this will be released tomorrow. Chris will do all the technique and stuff like that. I'm pretty old school, so I don't touch that stuff. I just host at times when I'm hungover. And then in terms of the international break, the lads, we're going to try to do some more BOP spaces that you guys seem to really like. And so get prepared with your questions. So if you're watching it on the YouTube, I'm going to get a smile out of Chris there. Hopefully. No. Okay, bad.
No.
Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure that you put some suggestions in terms of what you want us to discuss. We'll definitely have a Mikel section. We'll definitely maybe have a preview to January windows, Z, what you think, and maybe what, the whole panel thinks. What we need in January and what we can do. But yeah, be careful. Follow at Bot Footy, as well as follow the guys. So you can follow Willow. Maybe shout your socials, mate.
It's just the one Willow on Twitter.
Wonderful. And Z, mate, how about you? Shout your socials.
Private Arsenal Z, and shout to Curran BOP, who's not been on the pod today, but miss him.
Absolutely. And Christina?
Yeah, Georgina, my thing is pure CKK on Twitter and Baller Passion on TikTok.
Yeah, and you can find me at GeorgeV_AFC. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, people. I'm really pushing towards that 1K. Not the 600 anymore. I'm going big. We're going up to another exponential level, all right? We want to get to that 1K, so really make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and leave some comments for us. You want some forfeit stuff. We didn't really get too many forfeit ideas, so make sure that you do that. Yeah. Legal, please, legal. But yeah, anyways, stay with us, and we're going to be back with you at BOP Spaces probably over the break. So have a good one, guys. Thanks for joining us. Bye now.